fluffy Japanese pancakes. Two years ago I went to Japan and I went to this restaurant called Graham Cafe, and I waited an hour in a queue to then get a reservation an hour later to try these pancakes. And they were so thick, so fluffy, so light, so airy, so jiggly. Like, they just jiggled. It was a tower of pancakes. It was just stunning. It was the best pancakes I'd ever tried up until that point in my life. And then when I got home, I wanted to recreate these pancakes. So I looked online, I looked at different recipes, I tried recipe after recipe after recipe, and every recipe just seemed just wrong. When you've tried perfection, nothing but that is good enough. I mean, some of these recipes, for example, they look the same, they look like the fluffy, thick pancakes, but then when you bite into them, you eat them, the texture's all wrong. It's too thick, it's too cakey, and well, one of the mistakes of all the recipes I've seen is that they use cake flour, and that makes it cakey. When you make a pancake, you always use all-purpose flour. So when you make these fluffy pancakes, they have to be using all-purpose flour to have that pancakey taste instead of cakey taste. Yeah, so the last 2 months I've just been obsessing over this recipe. I've done nothing else except for cook pancakes for 2 months. I swear to God. Okay, so yeah, I've tried different recipes, tried tweaking things, tried introducing different techniques. Like, for example, when you make macarons, you can use the French meringue method, which is when you add dry sugars to make the meringue, and it creates sometimes instability in the meringue thickness and the fluffiness, which then will end up with hollow macaron shells. What you do for that is you do an Italian meringue, which uses sugar syrup. You cook it, and then you introduce it into the egg whites, which makes a much more stable foam, which then fills up the little biscuits. So they're full. And I used the same ideas and concepts when I was making these pancakes to make a foam, a meringue that would last longer. So that's why I add the sugar and the water together later in the recipe, you'll see. Okay, so I think I've introduced this enough. Let's just get into this. But I can assure you that these are fantastical pancakes. And even if you don't have rings at home, try making this without the ring, and then just get the rings. They're very cheap. You can get these in euro shops or dollar shops, wherever you are in the world. And let's cook this. Okay, let's start off by making our baking paper strips. So these are going to be on the inside of the ring mold, and I'm going to make them 7 centimeters thick. So I'm going to draw little dots at 7 centimeter intervals on one side and the other side so that I can cut in a straight line. Now I'm also going to make another little dot here, 29 centimeters, which is my fold point. So this is a little indicator where to fold. I'm going to use a cutting board to make straight lines with my nice sharp knife. And I like to make lots of these strips and just leave them in a Tupperware box. So whenever I want to make these pancakes, I just butter them up, fold them up, and use them. So this line is my fold point. As I mentioned before, you just fold it to that point so that it fits into the 10 centimeter diameter metal rings that I have. Okay, so we're going to cook our fluffy pancakes in a pan. Now I'm going to use a ring mold with the baking sheet strips we just cut, so you can easily release it out of the ring mold without having to cut it out, which will damage the pancakes. Now the only issue is you need to have a lid to keep the heat inside so that it cooks the pancake fully through, because if you don't have a lid, the top will stay very liquidy and won't solidify. So the only issue we have here is that most lids will hit the top of this, and then you'll end up with batter stuck to the lid and a big mess, and it's just not going to be good. It's going to be very terrible. So what we need to do is have a huge sort of dome lid. Now I don't expect you all to go buying specialized lids just to make these pancakes. So here is a mixing bowl made of metal, stainless steel, and we're just going to put it upside down and it fits into the pan. And this will create that environment that will cook your pancakes fully. Now the only issue is it's a bit hot, so when you try to lift it out, it's slippery and hard to grasp and you'll burn yourself. So we're going to make a makeshift handle right now for this. And just to clarify, you can do this in a pan, no problem, but I'm going to use a specialized pancake pan. It's the same thing, just doesn't have the edges, and it's easier to get from the side, and also for filming it'll look better. But essentially it's the same thing, dough goes on like this. Okay, let's make the handle for the dough. Okay, so we're gonna make a very simple handle for this, just using some masking tape. I think you can use duct tape as well. Just going to take it, place it here, and then when you come to the top, just squish it together, and then press it down again, and cut. And that is, obviously this is too weak, it's going to break apart, so we're just going to build a couple more layers on top of that. You know, once you're finished, you can just take it off. But also, I don't expect everyone to be buying €50 or $50 pancake lids that they're only going to use once. So a metal bowl is something you have at home and you can easily make. Now, see, there you go. Simply works. If you want it to be more secure, you add a couple more layers, but that's basically how we build this. Okay, now let's start prepping for the recipe. You add 76 grams of sugar, followed by 36 grams of water and a little squeeze of lemon juice. Now lemon juice will help stabilize the meringue and keep the proteins from sticking together, making a much smoother meringue. Also, the water mixed with the sugar softens the sugar so it doesn't break the bubbles. Now, we're going to start heating up our pan. I'm going to put it to 80 degrees Celsius on this induction cooker, and I'm going to place the lid onto it so that everything can start heating up and create an oven-like environment. Okay, to start the recipe, we're going to take 2 yolks, followed by 75 grams of plain flour, and 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, and then 2 teaspoons of baking powder, that's about 4.2 grams, and 4 tablespoons of melted butter, followed by 4 tablespoons of milk. Now, a lot of recipes out there use cake flour. I found by using all-purpose flour, it gives you the more pancakey kind of flavor, less cakey. Now mix this, and this will become the base of your pancakes. Okay, so we're going to take 6 egg whites, place them into our mixer, and we're going to add spoon by spoon slowly our water, sugar, lemon juice mixture. And then at the end, you're going to add it all in one go. And you're just going to keep the mixer on high until it becomes super stiff, super fluffy, and super silky smooth. So it should hold into your whisk like this and create hard peaks like these. Now at this point, you're going to take a little scoop, place it with our base mixture, and with a whisk, you're going to slowly whisk it in. Now this is just introducing the egg whites to the base mixture so they become friends. And then you add another little scoop and keep mixing it in. And every time you add more of the egg whites, you want to mix it slower. At the start, you can go quite rough, and as you go adding more, you go slower to not break any of the air pockets that you've made with the egg white. I found that the best method here is with a whisk. If you do it like a mousse, where you fold it with a spatula, it just doesn't really create a very good uniform end result. It just doesn't work very well. This seems to be the best method. Okay, so once you've mixed it all in, very gently, we're going to add it into our piping bag. Now for that, I'm going to take a beaker and then place my piping bag inside it, fold it over the top, just so it doesn't create a huge mess. And we're going to slowly, but very carefully, feed in pancake mixture into the piping bag. Now, these strips, make sure the ink is on the outside, and then we're going to just cover them with butter. So take a butter stick and just spread it across the surface, and then that folding point there is the meeting point for the end of the strip, and there we go. Now we've got our little ring. Now we can place these into our pan. First, you're going to start by placing a little bit of butter on the surface with our butter stick. Then we place our metal rings and put the inside the baking sheet strips that we made. And then you want to slowly but surely pipe in your mixture until it reaches about 80% of the way up. And then as it cooks, it's going to raise 100%. So just going to make that 20% increase in the pan. So we're going to close it, and we're going to not open it for 25 minutes. Now that is on my cooktop with my pan and my heating conditions, but yours might be slightly different. Okay, so now take the pancake off, butter the bottom, and flip it over, and do that for all 3 of them. And then the lid goes back on, and then we're going to leave it again for 25 minutes, and then take the rings off and just test the sides to see if they're fully cooked or not. Your cooktop, your heat might be slightly different, so you might want to look into how fast or slow your pancakes cook by checking on them. Now this is what you should have. Big, fat, thick, fluffy pancakes. And here we're gonna stack 3 of them on top of each other, put a little bit of powdered sugar on top, and a little half dome of butter. And there we go. Jiggly, fluffy pancakes done. So there we go. Now you know how to make the most amazing fluffy pancakes ever. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and yeah, just thank you for watching my pancake obsession. I will now proceed to never cook pancakes again. I've eaten so many pancakes. Anyway, goodbye.